Mandamus, a writ of mandamus, a process of compelling or commanding action through coercive means by way of contract law and equitable remedy. A mandamus is an order from a court to an inferior government official, ordering the government official to properly fulfill their official duties or correct an abuse of discretion. What most people suffer from, because the tortfeasor who has been elected to sit in a position that places God over them, is the abuse of discretion. Ordering the government official to properly fulfill their official duties or correct an abuse of discretion. Child support people that are going through a child support situation, here is one of your remedies. And the good part about mandamus is, even if it goes left, it still doesn't stop you from escalating it through appeals into Supreme Court, because mandamus is a separate action to its own, although relating to the matter at hand. Because mandamus goes directly to Supreme Court, but you can always bring a separate case, a separate action, either at law or equity or both, especially if it's on the federal level, it's merged. According to the U.S. Department of Justice, quote, mandamus is an extraordinary remedy which should only be used in exceptional circumstances of peculiar emergency or public importance. The issue that I just showed you with the county jail was public importance because there was maladministration and treason, which was the misuse of grants to make sure that the inmates are fine and their living conditions are proper. That was of public importance. That was how mandamus was applicable and enforceable in said circumstance. If you were dealing with child support, there's a high likelihood that they would not consider it public importance. So now the onus is on you to prove peculiar emergency. Yep. How you finagle that? There are many ways. But the operative word is peculiar, meaning particular to you. Bob, Joe, and Dick can all have child support case, but each of those three men can have different peculiarity in their child support matters. So now you have to know what's wrong and what's right about child support and how it is a trust issue and how you will implement that trust issue into your administrative process called the writ of mandamus. Now, since this WEX website makes reference to U.S. Department of Justice, why don't we just go straight to the Department of Justice and hear it from the horse's mouth? U.S. Department of Justice. Civil Resource Manual. Chapter 215. Mandamus. Remember one of the parties that I send, what I showed you, official action by mandatory order is limited to the enforcement of non-discretionary, plainly defined and purely ministerial duty, meaning it is clear on its face a right that you have and is not just based on their discretion that they can do or not. And purely ministerial, administrative. Child support, right. You're dealing with an acting judge in the lower court, right. That's ministerial. Child support, that's ministerial. You're dealing with an inferior court, an acting judge in an inferior court, that's ministerial. You're dealing with a trustee of a jail or prison, that's ministerial. This term ministerial duties is another word for trustee. If you remember the definition of mandamus that we read in the 3rd edition of Valentine's, it tells you mandamus applies to corporations, to persons, to courts, to officials, to boards, and to tribunals. Right here. Directed to some inferior court, tribunal, board, or to some corporation or person, which duty results from the official station. This official circumstances the mandamus can be enforced. That's the reason why it is difficult for a template to be created for a mandamus. The duty in a particular situation, that duty is always based on what they're limited by within this Bill of Rights, that they can and cannot do. Because they cannot do anything if it's not a lawful act. And the Congress, the legislature, which makes the law, cannot do certain things by default. And if Congress cannot make a law to limit or do certain things to you, that means no one else can enforce that law. Otherwise, it's unlawful. What makes it unlawful is if Congress had not made it into a law based on a restriction that's been created upon them through this Bill of Rights. The duty in a particular situation is so plainly described as to be free from doubt and equivalent to a positive command. It's free of doubt. It's the exhibits that you've shown in proof that this was violated. If you read what I showed you as an example carefully, you will realize that it mentioned things relating to the Constitution. It gives you citation of res judicata, quote unquote. But where there's discretion, even though its conclusion be disputable, it is impregnable to mandamus. Impregnable meaning there's no capacity for mandamus to enforce whatever it is. If they're allowed to use discretion on any given particular thing that you are saying they violated. So make sure that whatever you're saying that they violated is not a thing whereby they are given the leeway of discretion to enforce. In other words, complete 27-minute videos posted on the Patreon page. Take care. Best of luck.